My mother-in-law found panties in my husband's work locker, and everything was exposed. I never expected the truth to come from her. My mother-in-law was only trying to help, cleaning out an old work locker my husband hadn't used in months. That's when she found them. Panties that weren't mine, hidden among papers and uniforms. At first, she hesitated to tell me. When she finally did, her voice trembled more than mine. In that moment, every excuse my husband had ever given suddenly made sense. Late nights, sudden overtime, the emotional distance I tried to ignore. I didn't confront him right away. I listened. I watched. I let him believe his secret was still safe. What he didn't realize was that his mother's discovery had already unraveled everything he thought was hidden. By the time the truth surfaced, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, undeniable, and final. If this story helps you trust the messengers you never expected, or shows you the power of strategic silence, please leave a like and subscribe. There are revelations that arrive with thunder and lightning, and there are revelations that come quietly, delivered by the last person you'd expect to shatter your world. For me, the truth about my husband's affair came from his own mother, a woman who loved him fiercely but loved honesty and integrity more. The discovery happened almost by accident. She was simply trying to help by cleaning out an old work locker he'd abandoned when changing job sites, never imagining what she'd find hidden among the papers and uniforms. But what she discovered, and her choice to tell me despite the pain it would cause her son, set in motion a series of events that would end my marriage and reveal depths of deception I'd been living with, but refusing to see. My name is Jennifer Walsh, and I'm 32 years old. I'd been married to Ryan Walsh for 7 years when his mother Patricia found the evidence that would expose his affair and force me to confront a reality I'd been avoiding for over a year. This is the story of how that discovery happened, how I handled the information once I had it, and how the quiet, methodical way I dismantled Ryan's lies proved more devastating than any dramatic confrontation could have been. I met Ryan when I was 23 and he was 25, both of us working in the construction industry, me in project management at a development company, him as a site supervisor for a commercial contractor. The attraction was immediate and mutual, built on shared understanding of our demanding industry and genuine chemistry. We dated for 2 years before getting engaged, married when I was 25, built what seemed like a solid partnership based on mutual respect and shared ambitions. We bought a small house, both advanced in our careers, talked about eventually having children once we felt more financially secure. Ryan's mother, Patricia, was part of our lives from the beginning, a strong presence who'd raised Ryan and his younger brother as a single mother after her husband died when the boys were young. Patricia was practical and no-nonsense, someone who valued honesty and direct communication, who'd worked hard her entire life and had little patience for deception or excuses. She and I had always gotten along well. She appreciated that I had my own career and wasn't financially dependent on Ryan, respected that I was capable and independent, treated me more like a daughter than an in-law. The first few years of our marriage were happy and stable. Ryan and I both worked long hours. Our demanding careers meant we didn't spend as much time together as some couples, but we made it work. We'd have dinner together most nights, spent weekends on projects around our house or socializing with friends, maintained a comfortable partnership that felt sustainable and satisfying. I trusted Ryan completely, never had reason to doubt his fidelity or his commitment to our marriage. The changes in Ryan's behavior started about 18 months before Patricia's discovery, subtle at first but gradually becoming more pronounced. He started working later more frequently, claiming project deadlines and issues at his current construction site that required his presence. He became more protective of his phone, keeping it password protected and face down, taking calls in other rooms rather than in my presence. He seemed distracted and distant, less engaged in our conversations, often seeming to be thinking about something else even when we were together. I noticed these changes but explained them away. Construction schedules were unpredictable. Project pressures were intense. Maybe Ryan was stressed about work and needed space. When I asked directly if something was wrong, if work was particularly difficult, Ryan would say everything was fine, just busy, nothing to worry about. His reassurances were delivered in ways that discouraged follow-up questions, suggesting I was being overly concerned or intrusive by asking. So I accepted his explanations and tried not to feel hurt by his emotional distance and his absence. There were specific incidents that troubled me, but that I rationalized away at the time. Once I tried to reach Ryan during his claimed overtime hours, and his phone went straight to voicemail for over 3 hours. When he finally called back, he said his phone had died and he'd been dealing with an equipment problem. The explanation was plausible, but something about it felt off. Ryan was usually diligent about keeping his phone charged given the nature of his work. Another time, I'd stopped by his job site to drop off lunch and he wasn't there, despite having told me that morning he'd be there all day. His coworker seemed surprised when I asked for Ryan, said he'd left a few hours earlier. When I asked Ryan about it later, he said the coworker was confused, that he'd been in a different area of the large site, got defensive about me checking up on him. I also noticed changes in our intimate life. Ryan was less interested in physical affection, would make excuses about being tired or stressed, seemed to be avoiding intimacy in ways that were new in our relationship. When I expressed concern about this change, asked if there was something wrong between us, Ryan blamed work exhaustion and suggested I was being demanding. The deflection made me feel guilty for even raising the issue, like I was the problem for noticing changes rather than the changes themselves being worth addressing. Looking back now, I can see clearly that all these signs pointed to an affair. The late hours, the phone secrecy, the emotional distance, the avoiding intimacy, the defensiveness when questioned. But at the time, I didn't want to see it, didn't want to believe Ryan would cheat, found it easier to accept his explanations than to confront the possibility that my husband was betraying me. The human capacity for denial when facing painful truths is remarkable. I was living with clear evidence of infidelity, but refusing to acknowledge what it meant, because doing so would require action and pain I wasn't ready to face. The revelation that would shatter my denial came from Patricia, Ryan's mother, about 16 months after the affair had apparently started. Patricia called me one afternoon, her voice sounding strained and upset in ways I'd never heard before, asking if she could come over that evening to talk to me about something important. She wouldn't tell me what it was over the phone, just said it was serious, and that Ryan shouldn't be present for the conversation. The request was so unusual, Patricia was normally direct and straightforward, that I knew immediately something significant had happened. When Patricia arrived that evening after Ryan had left for claimed overtime, she looked older and more tired than usual, her face drawn with obvious distress. She sat down heavily on our couch and told me what she'd discovered. Ryan had recently changed job sites within his company, moving from a project on the north side of the city to a new development on the south side. His old site had a workers' locker room where employees kept personal items and work gear. When sites closed or workers moved, they were supposed to clean out their lockers. But Ryan had apparently just abandoned his, leaving it full of papers and old work clothes. The site manager had contacted Patricia, knowing she was Ryan's emergency contact listed with the company, asking if she could clean out the abandoned locker since Ryan hadn't responded to requests to do it himself. Patricia had agreed, thinking it would be a simple task of throwing away old paperwork and dirty uniforms. But when she'd gone to the locker the previous day, she'd found more than just work debris. Hidden in the back of the locker, stuffed inside a rolled-up sweatshirt, were women's underwear, multiple pairs in different styles, none of which Patricia recognized as something I would wear based on her knowledge of my style and size. There was also a woman's bracelet, a lipstick in a shade Patricia knew I didn't wear, and most damningly, several notes on small pieces of paper written in feminine handwriting with messages that were clearly romantic and sexual in nature, signed with the name Amber. Patricia had taken photos of everything with her phone before removing the items from the locker, understanding that I might need evidence. She showed me these photos, the underwear, the jewelry, the notes. The handwriting in the notes was distinctive, the messages unmistakable in their implications. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one said. "Last night was amazing," said another. "I love what you do to me," said a third. These weren't ambiguous. They were clear evidence of an ongoing intimate relationship between Ryan and someone named Amber. I sat on my couch looking at the photos on Patricia's phone, feeling the world tilt and reshape around me, the denial I'd been maintaining for months crumbling instantly in the face of undeniable proof. Ryan was having an affair. The late nights, the phone secrecy, the emotional distance, the avoiding intimacy, all of it suddenly made perfect, horrible sense. I'd been living with a man who was deceiving me, who was dividing his time and attention and affection between me and another woman, who'd been lying to my face for over a year while I'd chosen to believe him. Patricia was crying as she showed me the evidence, her hands shaking as she held her phone. "I didn't want to believe it," she said, her voice breaking. "When I first saw those things, I tried to tell myself there must be some explanation, that Ryan wouldn't do this to you. But there's no innocent explanation for women's underwear hidden in his locker with love notes from another woman. I thought about not telling you, about just throwing everything away and pretending I'd never seen it. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve better than being deceived." Patricia's decision to tell me, despite the pain it would cause her son and the strain it would put on her relationship with him, was an act of integrity that I've never forgotten. Many mothers would have protected their sons, would have hidden the evidence or minimized it, would have prioritized family loyalty over honesty to an in-law. But Patricia had stronger principles than that. She believed in truth and accountability, believed I deserved to know what was happening in my own marriage, was willing to face her son's anger to do what was right. We talked for hours that night, Patricia and I, going through everything she'd found and discussing what I wanted to do with the information. She offered to confront Ryan herself, to spare me that difficulty, but I told her this was something I needed to handle on my own. She also gave me the actual items she'd removed from the locker. She'd kept them rather than throwing them away, understanding I might need the physical evidence, not just photos. Before she left, Patricia hugged me tightly and said, "You're like a daughter to me, Jennifer. Whatever happens with Ryan, that doesn't change. I'm on your side in this." After Patricia left, I sat alone in our house examining the evidence more closely. The underwear that definitely wasn't mine, the bracelet that looked expensive, the notes and handwriting I didn't recognize. One note had a phone number written at the bottom, presumably Amber's number giving Ryan a way to contact her. Another note referenced, "Your wife working late again," making clear that Amber knew Ryan was married and that they were deliberately arranging meetings when I'd be unavailable to discover them. I didn't confront Ryan that night when he came home from his supposed overtime. He arrived around 10, seemed tired but normal, asked about my day, went through the usual routine of shower and then bed. I played along, acted like nothing had changed, responded to his questions normally. Inside, I was screaming, was devastated and enraged and heartbroken, but I kept all of that hidden. Some instinct told me that confronting immediately would be a mistake, that I needed time to think and plan, that reacting emotionally would put me at a disadvantage. Over the next week, I gathered more information while pretending everything was normal. I hired a private investigator named Michael Torres, showed him Patricia's photos and the physical evidence, asked him to document Ryan's activities and identify who Amber was. Michael conducted surveillance and research, and within 3 days had comprehensive information about Ryan's affair and his mistress. Amber was 26, worked as a receptionist at the construction company that managed the site where Ryan had been working for the past 18 months. They'd apparently started their affair shortly after Ryan began working at that site, their proximity and regular contact creating opportunity for relationship to develop. Michael had photos of Ryan and Amber together, entering hotels during hours Ryan claimed to be working, having intimate dinners at restaurants, behaving obviously as romantic couple rather than just colleagues. The investigator had also obtained some text messages between Ryan and Amber through methods I didn't ask about too closely. The messages confirmed the affair was ongoing and serious. They communicated daily, expressed affection for each other, discussed plans for future, including apparently some fantasy that Ryan would eventually leave me and they'd be together officially. Amber's messages suggested she was pushing for this, was tired of being the other woman, wanted Ryan to make a choice. Ryan's responses were non-committal, but didn't shut down the possibility, kept saying timing wasn't right yet, but that he cared about her. Armed with this comprehensive evidence, I consulted with a divorce attorney about my rights and options. The attorney explained that while infidelity didn't affect property division in our no-fault state, having documentation was still valuable for establishing grounds and for preventing Ryan from constructing false narratives about why our marriage ended. She recommended documenting everything thoroughly, which I'd already begun doing, and suggested I confront Ryan when I was ready, but from a position of having already taken protective legal and financial steps. I spent 2 weeks preparing before I confronted Ryan, using that time to protect myself and position strategically. I opened a separate bank account and transferred half our joint savings into it, legally protecting my share. I consulted with the attorney and had initial divorce papers prepared. I gathered all evidence and stored copies in multiple secure locations. I told a few close friends what was happening, creating a support system of people who knew the truth and could help me through what was coming. I documented everything: the evidence Patricia had found, the investigators' reports, the text messages, the timeline of the affair. Throughout these 2 weeks, I maintained completely normal behavior with Ryan, asking about his day, having dinner together, acting like everything was fine in our marriage. He seemed to suspect nothing, continued his routine of actual work some days, and alleged overtime that was actually time with Amber on other days. His comfort and confidence in his deception made my anger burn colder and more controlled. He thought he was successfully fooling me, thought I was too trusting or too naive to see what was obvious once you actually looked. The confrontation I planned was strategic rather than emotional, designed to give Ryan no room to lie or minimize. I waited until a Saturday when I knew Ryan had no work obligations and couldn't use job as excuse to escape the conversation. That morning, after we'd had breakfast, I told Ryan we needed to talk about something serious and asked him to sit down in our living room. "Your mother found some things when she cleaned out your old work locker," I began, watching Ryan's face carefully. I saw immediate alarm flash in his eyes, saw him calculating what Patricia might have found, what I might know. She found women's underwear that aren't mine, a bracelet, lipstick, and several notes from someone named Amber. She gave them to me along with photos of everything. I pulled out my phone and showed Ryan the photos Patricia had taken, watched his face drain of color as he saw the evidence displayed on the screen. "I've also hired a private investigator who's documented your affair extensively," I continued calmly. "I have photos of you with Amber at hotels and restaurants, text messages between you discussing your relationship, comprehensive evidence of you conducting an affair for approximately 18 months while lying to me about working overtime." I spread out printed photos from the investigator's report on the coffee table, images of Ryan and Amber together, undeniably intimate, impossible to explain away. "I've consulted with a divorce attorney and have papers prepared," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "I've protected our joint assets and documented everything. I'm not here to listen to excuses or apologies or pleas for another chance. I'm here to tell you our marriage is over, and to give you the information about how divorce will proceed." Ryan tried several approaches over the following minutes. Denial initially. Those photos could be explained. We're just friends. Then minimizing. It didn't mean anything, it was a mistake. Then justification. You've been so focused on work, I felt neglected. Then desperate pleading. "Please don't do this. I love you. I'll end it with her immediately." I responded to none of it, just sat calmly and let him cycle through his attempts to deflect or escape accountability. When he finally stopped talking, I said simply, "Your mother found the evidence because she was trying to help you by cleaning out your locker. She discovered your affair by accident and made the difficult choice to tell me even though it would hurt you and strain your relationship with her. She showed more integrity and respect for me than you've shown in 18 months. I'm grateful to her for telling me the truth you've been hiding. The marriage is over, Ryan. You need to move out." The mention of his mother seemed to hit Ryan particularly hard. The realization that she knew, that she'd chosen to expose him, that she'd sided with me over him. "My mother told you?" he said, his voice filled with betrayal and disbelief. "She gave you those things instead of just throwing them away or talking to me first. She went behind my back to ruin my marriage?" The attempt to make Patricia the villain, to frame her integrity as betrayal, revealed Ryan's fundamental inability to take responsibility for his own choices. "Your mother didn't ruin your marriage," I said coldly. "You ruined it by having an affair for 18 months. Your mother just made sure I knew the truth instead of continuing to live in ignorance while you deceived me. She did the right thing, the brave thing, the thing that required integrity and courage. You're angry at her because she wouldn't help you hide your betrayal, but she's not the problem here. You are." Ryan left that day, Went to stay with a friend initially, and then moved into an apartment. The divorce took 9 months to finalize, during which Ryan tried various strategies to minimize his accountability or avoid consequences. His attorney attempted to argue that my hiring an investigator and protecting assets before confrontation showed calculated planning, rather than genuine emotional response, as if preparing strategically was somehow worse than reacting impulsively. My attorney demolished that argument easily. Of course, I'd protected myself once I discovered infidelity. That was prudent and appropriate, not evidence of anything except reasonable self-protection. Ryan's relationship with his mother was severely damaged by her decision to tell me about the affair. He felt betrayed by her, couldn't understand why she'd chosen me over him, was angry that she'd exposed rather than covered for him. Patricia stood firm, told Ryan she'd done what was right regardless of his anger, that she'd raised him to have integrity and was disappointed he'd turned into someone who cheated and lied. Their relationship has slowly improved over the 2 years since the divorce, but it's strained in ways it wasn't before, changed permanently by Patricia's choice to prioritize honesty over protecting her son. The relationship between Patricia and me has remained strong. She's been supportive throughout the divorce, and afterward, continues to treat me like family despite the end of my marriage to her son, has made clear that Ryan's actions don't change her affection and respect for me. Her decision to tell me about the affair, despite the personal cost and despite her love for Ryan, created a bond between us that transcends the dissolved marriage. She showed me what integrity looks like when it's difficult, what it means to do the right thing even when it hurts people you love. Ryan's affair with Amber didn't survive the exposure and divorce. They continued seeing each other for about 6 months after my discovery, but the relationship deteriorated quickly once it was no longer secret and forbidden. Without the excitement of deception and the structure of Ryan's marriage to orbit around, their connection apparently couldn't sustain itself. Amber had apparently imagined that once Ryan was divorced, they'd immediately move towards something official and permanent. But Ryan wasn't ready for that level of commitment, was dealing with financial pressures from the divorce, and probably some guilt about how everything had unfolded. They broke up mutually, both apparently recognizing that a relationship built on betrayal wasn't a solid foundation for legitimate partnership. 2 years after Patricia found the evidence in Ryan's locker, I'm 32 and rebuilding my life as a single woman. The betrayal was devastating. Discovering that my husband had been conducting an affair for over a year while I'd trusted him completely. Realizing I'd been living in a fiction while he divided his time and affection between me and his mistress. The recovery has been long and difficult, has required therapy to process the trauma, and to rebuild my ability to trust after such comprehensive deception. But I'm grateful it happened the way it did, that Patricia made the brave choice to tell me, that I learned the truth before more years of my life were wasted on a marriage built on lies, that I had the strategic sense to investigate and prepare rather than confronting impulsively. The quiet, methodical way I handled the discovery and confrontation, gathering evidence, protecting myself, confronting from position of strength, felt more powerful than drama or emotional explosion would have been. By the time I finally told Ryan I knew, I'd already dismantled his life, already set in motion the consequences of his choices, already ensured he couldn't escape accountability through lies or manipulation. Patricia's decision to expose her own son's affair remains one of the most profound acts of integrity I've witnessed. She could have stayed silent, could have thrown away the evidence and pretended she'd never seen it, could have prioritized protecting Ryan over honoring truth. Many parents would have made that choice, family loyalty over honesty, protecting their child over doing what's right. But Patricia chose differently, chose to tell me despite knowing it would hurt Ryan and damage their relationship, chose to value integrity over comfort. I asked Patricia once, months after the divorce, whether she regretted telling me, whether the damage to her relationship with Ryan made her wish she'd handled it differently. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I regret that Ryan made choices that hurt you and that put me in that position, but I don't regret telling you the truth. You deserve to know what was happening in your own marriage, and Ryan deserved to face consequences for his choices rather than being protected from them. Sometimes love means letting people you care about face the results of their actions, even when that's painful for everyone. That wisdom, that sometimes love means accountability rather than protection, has stayed with me." Patricia loved Ryan enough to let him face consequences, to refuse to enable his deception, to prioritize what was right over what was comfortable. And that choice, while painful for everyone involved, was ultimately what everyone needed, even if not what everyone wanted. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm 32 and divorced after discovering through my mother-in-law that my husband had been having an affair for 18 months. Patricia found evidence hidden in Ryan's abandoned work locker: underwear, jewelry, love notes, proof that was undeniable and comprehensive. She made the difficult choice to tell me despite knowing it would hurt her son, prioritizing truth and integrity over family loyalty and comfort. Her disclosure gave me the information I needed to protect myself, to end a marriage built on lies, to avoid wasting more years on someone who was betraying me. The truth came from the last person I expected, but it came when I needed it, delivered by someone with enough courage to do the right thing even when it was hard. And that truth, however painful, set me free. Thank you for reading. If this story helped you trust unexpected messengers or recognize the power of strategic response to betrayal, please like and subscribe. Claude é uma IA e pode cometer erros. Por favor, verifique as respostas.